improve our skill to write abstract or even full papers. So Peter Sensei may guide us about some works, students' works during holidays, and we can learn much from professor suggestions. I think maybe Peter Sensei do guide us, please.
Okay, so what I suggest we do is with each university has selected 2 representative abstracts. And what I'd like to do is go and look at each of the abstracts from each of the universities, and I'll get the professors at NTU and Scuba University to be the coordinator of the abstract from their university. I will be putting out the PowerPoint with that particular abstract, so I'll control the PowerPoint, but I'd like to first ask NTU maybe to start and to facilitate the review of the 2 abstracts from NTU. Then we'll go to Scuba University, and then in the end, well, I'd like to come back to Kyoto University, and there I'd like to do it in a way that tries to get a little bit more student input. So we'll start first with sort of explaining from the professor's perspective, and then finally come back and maybe try and get a little bit more input from the students. Okay, so are you ready in NTU to start the revision process?
Okay, very good. Professor Yan would like to.
这是我们的 OK。Okay. Okay. So I'll start with NTU number 2. This is written by Mr. Zhou regarding the vision-based guidance for robot navigation in agriculture. Okay. So when we look at the introduction, the whole structure of the abstract, probably I would suggest Mr. Zhou to put more material in the introduction. Although you are very familiar with the background or the problem, but as a reader, probably you need to provide more information to motivate why the research is going to be. So that would give the reader a more, aware what the problem is, whether the problem is important, relevant to the field. Okay, and that would be the only one suggestion to the abstract. The other things like material, methods, result discussion, I think you have done quite well. One minor suggestion for you is that probably you conventionally, for example, can you go to the method, section 2, the left-hand side of the paper? Yeah, left-hand side, a little bit, left-hand side.
Okay.
Move the cursor, yeah, okay. That is it's okay, yeah, it's going to be, okay, great. Okay, okay. So the method, a little bit lower down the method. Okay, okay. So the first sentence, you use pronoun. They assume crops are plain in approximately blah, blah, blah. Conventionally, when we write the paper, the abstract, we try to avoid using I or he, they, we. We try to not use the pronouns. Just focus on the subjects. So passive 被动式 passive will be used. For example, we say it is assumed crops are planted in approximately. So in your abstract you use a lot of they, he. So this will be the minor suggestion for you. That's all from me. Thank you. On to you.
According
to sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I have some little comment in addition to Professor Ian's comments, and I think the extend abstract, this abstract was written basically, and I would suggest the results and discussion to be more concisely. I mean, make more brief understanding, clearly understanding. That's all.
Okay. Would the professor from Scuba University like to comment on that number 2 abstract from NTU?
Yes. Yeah, I'm just opening right now. So I choose two abstract. First one is about utilization of crop signaling techniques as a novel crop detection method for automated removal.
We are still talking about the NTU abstract. We have done the number 1. We'll get your comments on the number 1, and then we'll continue to do the second abstract from NTU, and then go to Scuba.
Do you have NTU 02? Abstract NTU 02.
I got it, NTU 02 right now.
Yeah, that one. We are talking about that.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think only the introduction section is a little bit of a review of literatures to acknowledge like your previous researches. So in that case, probably in 02, it's better to improve the introduction a little bit based on previous researches. This one is first. And the second one is, I think materials and methods are well written. Discussion is a little bit longer compared to the total structure of the extended abstract. I think in that case, discussion can be minimized a little bit, add a little bit more results. And conclusions are fine. And lack of the reference, I think extended abstract is a mini version of paper, so it needs to have a reference as well to put in that. So the balance are well, only the discussion balance is a little bit longer compared to the results and things. And introduction needs to have a little bit more, 1 or 2 reference to cite the complete researches. That's all for number 2, vision-based guidance for robot navigations.
Professor Kendo, would you like to? Okay, I'd like to make a few comments that also reflect what the other professors have said. So if we look at the first sentence, due to a growing world population, food production must increase dramatically. Autonomous vehicles play a key role in improving productivity. There is some linkage there, but the next sentence, the most common commercial solution, is GPS. It is just throwing you facts. There's not a story being developed. Not telling you why they are doing this. And so in the end they say, this paper presents a novel monocular vision-based method that's something that doesn't really mean much to me. What I would really have liked is, why did they choose to do this? Help me to understand the reasoning, not just like a recipe. If I read a recipe for when I'm making a cake, I just follow, I put the sugar in, I heat it up. I don't understand why I'm doing it. In this case, as the other professors noted, it's well written, but it tends to be more a recipe rather than helping the readers understand the logic or the reasoning behind what they're doing and how they're going to evaluate the results. So in the materials, in the methods section, or results section, sorry, they give where is it? Results where the RMS error is 28 millimeters and 120 millimeters. That is a fact, but it doesn't really tell me, is that good? Is that bad? Is it mama? Do they need to improve it, or are they happy with that? I would want to go beyond just the facts of reporting the facts to help me understand what is the meaning of those results. So again, I'd like to say that the English is very good. It's the storytelling that I'd like to have a little bit more strength in. Okay, that's all from me.
Yes. I'd like to ask Cho Hao Chen, NTU. Please ask professors about the many suggestions from them. The interaction between professor and the student is important, I think. So please try, to ask them if you have some question. If all agree, no problem.
Hi, I'm Hao Chen, and I want to ask a question about the method. I write the flow chart on this by first step and the next step. Is this the good to show the flow chart on words?
So from my perspective, the method is written as a recipe, but I don't understand why they do the pre-processing of the image. Or the next step is to detect the horizon. Why are they doing that? Is that important to understand what the overall objective of the study is? So for you, I know that you understand why they are doing that. But if I come from a different field and I'm reading that, if it is only a recipe, it gives me no opportunity to evaluate or understand the logic behind it. And so it will be up to you, depending on how long the abstract is, whether you include it or not. But I'd like you to start to think about not so much of the details, but the overall flow and reasoning behind it. Because many of the details cannot be included in an abstract. That will be necessarily included in the main part of the manuscript.
Okay, thank you. And that's all my question.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Would NTU like now to go on to the second extended abstract?
So the second abstract, I echo all the professors' comments for the NTU number 2, and so the NTU number 7 in the introduction section also have a similar symptom that in your introduction you did not give the reason why you are using NIR for the detection. So because the background is just one sentence in the first sentence, and so the reason why you are using this, the background, the problem, the current status of for fungal infection, and why the lung destructive technique is important for this kind of detection. All this information are lacking. So probably you also have to modify the introduction section. That's my comments.
Yeah, to me, it looks to me that the introduction have now in an extended abstract is also abstract. Is another introduction, and so it's not necessary to put the abstract for the extended abstract. So I think as I echo Professor Yen's comments that this introduction need to be rewrite. And also the conclusion will be, it could be make it a little bit shorter would be better. There's 2 comments from me.
Tofayer-san, please.
Okay, thank you. I think introduction in short is good, but the reference which was cited is not given inside the text. So probably it is missing. Some of the references in the introductions are missing, but it is listed at the end of the extended abstract. And the second, I think the balance of the extended abstract is not good, because if we look at materials and methods is very small, and compared to conclusions is too big. I think first paragraph of conclusion doesn't need it. Up to the peer-wise model, I guess, first. And can be given from the method present in study could detect the early stages. From here, it could be okay. But before that, it can be moved to the results and discussion section, because and materials and methods needs to be more rich. I think the materials and methods is not sound enough to detect more how they did the research. So materials and methods needs to improve, and introduction needs to add 1 or 2 references which were cited at the end, and conclusion needs to revise. I think the last one, the method present in the study could detect the early stages of a flavorous infection of date fruits. Could be enough from here with a little bit of modification. And that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Dingelway-san, NTU, there? Okay. You made the references 1, 2, 3, 4 papers, right? And you are going to refer these papers somewhere in introduction or somewhere, right? And the two ways, we have two ways to differ, to make a difference. The first one would be you put number 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or alphabetical order that, main authors, head authors, alphabetical order should be necessary. In your case, no number and not alphabetical because Abdel, Al-Janobi and King and Al-Jaisa. So please follow either of them. You understand? Okay, that's all from me.
Okay. From me, I'd just like to repeat what all the other professors have noted, that again, I'd like to see more of the why and a little bit less of the recipe. Also, in the conclusion, the last couple of sentences, thus the proposed approach is effective to discriminate fungal contaminated date from healthy ones. That's the first time it's ever been mentioned in this whole abstract. You're not supposed to add new information in the conclusion. You're supposed to be referring back to what has already been said in the past. And then there is this system should also be tested on other common fungi, such as causing spoilage of date fruits. Again, the title and the introduction and the materials and methods wasn't really pointing towards that. It seems as though it's come out of the blue there. So I'd like to see a little bit more consistency of what the title, what the introduction, materials, results, and conclusion, they all point to the same thing rather than many different things. Okay. So that's all from me. Can we now go to Scuba University? Sorry.
Mr. Lin, do you have any question about our comments?
Thank you for your comments. I think I really agree with your comments, and I think the conclusion should be shorter, and I need to talk more about the material method. Thank you very much.
Okay, Scuba University, would you like to now present the two abstracts from Scuba University? Okay. Professor of the University.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. So let's switch one.
Excuse me, shall we change the signal because we would like to use the computer in here?
Okay, no problem, no problem. It's okay, it's okay, no need. Okay, if it is there, it's fine. It's okay. I can make a comment from here. It's okay. I think the first one from the Scuba University I read, utilization of crop signaling techniques is novel crop detection method for automated weed removal. Yeah, it was a little bit harder for me to read while I was reading because some of the crop signaling genetic issues were added in this extended abstract. I think the introductions were a little bit longer compared to the total balance of the extended abstract when I read. I feel the introduction is a little bit longer and reference were not cited. Even at the end of the abstract, there was one reference is given. So I was feeling that it would be better to give one or two reference to acknowledge the previous research, what has been done in this area. So this is one of the things. In the case of materials and methods, I found one or two sentences were too long to follow up. So for example, I think there was a one line, these straws were pre-installed in transplant pots before the tomatoes were planted. Suddenly it was a jump to why tomatoes were planted, because it was a weed detection and some sort of UV light, and rhodamine B was emitted through the inoculation systems. So, and then there was another one given from the maize. So I was a bit wondering. And finally, the test was done on a lettuce crop. It was done on a lettuce crop, rosette lettuce plants. So it was not clearly explained why the other two crops were selected for the maize and the tomatoes. What was the reason to do that? So those explanations are lack of in the materials and methods. In case of results, I think more or less, again, it came out fluorescent protein methods using induced anthocyanin expression in tomato plants resulting in tomato plants. So having distinct purple color in the daylight and bright green under the UV light. So this one is not connected with the rosette lettuce plants. Why it was done, how it is connected with the research. And finally, the result when it was given, it is given mainly straws and crops and other things. The results are well written, but this part is somehow, I'm not expert in this area, but I could not follow why the two other crops were selected and inoculated with rhodamine B. I think conclusions are well balanced, and more or less, probably it would be better to give a discussion separately. Sometimes it is important to discuss separately in the extended abstract as a part of discussion what is not clear, what is lack of. So I would suggest our student to separate results and discussions in the two blocks. So probably which one is results and which one is discussion can be easily separated and can be easily commented. So overall, in a short, probably in introduction, I just repeat two things, needs a little bit of reference. And in materials and methods, some sentences are not clear and a little bit more explanations are needed why two crops, maize and tomato, were selected, because the research was done in a lettuce plant, how the inoculation was done, a little bit more simple way, and discussion could be separate. So that's all from my side.
This is Brian Foronda-san.
Yes.
Tsukuba. Is there?
Brian is not today here. I don't know.
Oh, okay. That's unfortunate. Yeah, my solution is just some paragraph. Very long paragraph. Only one paragraph each section. Maybe add more separately, three blocks would be easier to read. Yeah, please tell him the.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, please.
Okay.
Okay, also for me, I'd just like to repeat what Professor has said, that the writing itself was very good. The English was very easy to read, but again, it wasn't necessarily telling a story. So this long introduction goes right down to here is just setting the context. Normally you need to have the context, what is the problem, and how they're going to tackle that problem in the introduction. But it's only one last sentence suddenly jumps from that context to the how they're going to do it. but not why. So yeah, as the other professors noted, it was a little bit not well balanced in the way in which he was trying to tell that story. And at the final one, they look at for the conclusion, this research explored various techniques in crop signaling for automated weed detection. Those sentences are seeming to be, finally you're getting to understand why they're doing this. That should have been, those ideas should have been right up at the introduction, as have more consistency throughout. Okay, that's all from me. Are there some comments from NTU?
Yeah, I think the introduction is to tell us why this research is needed. And also the introduction is a little bit too long, so you could make it a little bit shorter would be better. And also in material methods and also results and discussion, I think a little bit longer. And also because only, as pointed out by Professor Kondo, one paragraph may be difficult to read. So if he could split into 2 or 3 paragraphs, would be much better, I think.
Just one suggestion about the result discussion. There are 4 methods, 4 techniques to be compared. But if we just look at the paragraph, we only see the numbers, 97.8%, blah, 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 for topical markers. So that gives the readers some confusion that they should have some numerical comparison between these 4 techniques. And then you give the conclusion that the topical marker is the most effective. So maybe you have to think about how to balance the information presented in the results. Thank you.
Okay, could we go back to Scuba University to do the second of the extended abstracts?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So for the comments for the other abstract, I will talk with Brian and our TA to improve his abstract as well. So let me explain the second abstract, extended abstract, strawberry yield prediction based on a deep neural network using high resolution aerial orthomosaics. So the English is very simple in this paper, and some cases a little bit, I was feeling the introduction is a little bit longer compared to materials and methods, results and discussions. So it needs to be a little bit balanced because introduction is not too long compared to materials and methods and results. So introduction needs to be a little bit concise, what I was feeling. And the citing reference is not well, like I was feeling, like a Garcia-Ruiz et al. Compared UV-based sensors and aircraft image sensors and detection of the HLV disease, finding that the accuracy was higher for UAV-based data. So probably it can be rewrite. Maybe I will talk with you, the student, how to rewrite this one more concise way. And the second one, a ground robot system using the faster RCNN method to count plant stocks yielded a coefficient. I was not sure why he mentioned this one. What was the reason to connect with this research? A ground robot system came suddenly from UAV-based data. There is a sudden jump from these two paragraphs. So finally, the objective of the study was to develop. Probably here it can be given why this yield prediction is very important before the objective was before the mentioning objective. So probably rewriting the introduction would be better, more concise way, and why like a RCNN method can be used for UAV platform. So a sudden jump is there and citation difference is not well balanced. Materials and methods, I think the first part was doing well, very simple to follow up. And in case of like a citing, for example, they mention, they use. I think this is not the way. Probably it would be better to start like a faster CNN method was based on ARSNet 50 structure. No need to use the they used. Rather, you writing in a different way would be better. Results and discussions. Some cases, for example, it says the best results were found in radiant strawberry mature fruit at 2 meter. 2 meter, sometimes this is not consistent way. Sometimes it is written 2 meter, sometimes it is written TW 2 meter. So it needs to be consistent. Radiant strawberry mature fruit at 2 meter, sensation mature fruit. So probably in the materials and methods, it need to focus what needs to detect through this method. For example, it was said only the deep neural network, CNN, RCNN, RCNet. But in that case, it was not telling actually what we wanted to find out, like object localization detection. But in results and detection, result and discussion, it was discussed like a radiant strawberry mature fruit and then sensation mature fruit. I think these sort of words need to repeat in the mention in the materials and methods. So it can be easily follow what results are come. Not like as Professor Pilar said, it is not like not new words should not come in the new results and discussion. The previous words should be there. A suddenly new word came like a radiance and then sensation matured, which was not mentioned in materials and methods. I think this section can be improved. Conclusion is this paper was presented a deep learning method, deep learning model for strawberry flower and fruit detection system based on high resolution orthomosaics taken images collected using the drone. I think it is also needed to be very uniform, whether you're using UAV, they everywhere need to use the UAV, so consistent manner. The system could be used to build yield estimation maps, which could help farmers to predict weekly yields of strawberries and monitor the outcome of each area to save their time and labor cost. I think this sort of word can be picked up in the introduction to mention that to reduce the post-harvest losses and early harvestings for optimum harvesting time, this sort of method can help. So some of the conclusion words like how these systems can help. It was said like a labor shortage, unpicked, overripe. So probably it would be better to use more technical word from strawberries, like how much losses every time farmer does, because it has a very perishable. So maybe some quantification data would give a lot of importance of this research, like say 30% of this fish fruit goes on loss if it is not properly harvested on time, on scheduling. So that's why it is very important to detect radiance mature and sensation mature stage to harvest. Then go to the objective. So then it would be a more storytelling, gives more impact on the research. I think that's all. Probably if I summary, introduction need to revise a little bit more. Materials and methods need to use the technical keywords which was mentioned in results and discussion to bring out there, and in results and discussions are fine. And conclusions, I think the same way it is mentioned. So only materials and methods and only introduction needs to a little bit revise. Thank you very much.
Takeshi Yu-san is there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm here.
Oh, okay. How are you? Fine. you are listening well. My suggestion is just a simple. Maybe your format is looks different from others. A little larger size of letters. Also, the space between lines also larger. And as Tofaro-san suggested, results and discussion, the strawberry mature fruits at 2 meters, sensation mature fruit 2 meters, flowers at 2 meters. Maybe you may use table. Table is easier to understand. Just replace by table. And okay, maybe other professors suggest to you. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. I would just like to repeat Professor Toffel's comments. They were he covered the abstract very well. And from what he was describing and what I was thinking, the two key words for me is the why they're doing it, and consistency. Just one final example of consistency is that in the title has yield in it, but there wasn't any actual yield prediction throughout the whole paper. They are doing the initial research to enable to do the yield prediction, but they weren't actually doing the yield prediction. So the consistency of the story was not that consistent throughout. That's all from me. Would the professors from NTU like to comment?
Okay, I would suggest to rewrite their introduction and concisely, because now it's a little bit longer, and the conclusion need to be responded to what we mentioned in the introduction. So maybe the conclusion could be modified a little bit, and also the short results and discussion this session is kind of short. And also there are some repeated phrases or sentences. So more text would expect in the session of results and discussion. And in addition to that, I also make some correction of grammars.
My comments will be suggested in the result and discussion. So you have the numbers for 2 meter and 3 meter. So is it good enough or not very good? So probably you have to provide your comments on the results. That's the thing. The second thing is that if the 2 meters, the result for 2 meters, you think is good, then, or it's not good enough. So are there any limitation for this kind of methods? So in summary, as a reader, we would like to know your insight from the results. So that's what my comments for. You're probably missing some discussion, the inside discussion for this kind of results. Thank you.
Okay, so we have finished with NTU and Scuba. Okay, yeah, so
Takeshi Yu-san, do you have any question or objections? If you have.
Thank you for comments, and I will add the more reason and be consistent to make my abstract more clear. Thank you.
Okay, so from Kyoto University, I'd like to take a little bit different approach. I'll try and first get some feedback from the students, and then I'll get comments from the professors. Okay, so we'll start with the first one, the detection of rotten eggs by Pseudomonas fluorescens based on their fluorescence property. Okay, so the abstract is quite long. I'll give you a little bit of time to read it, and then I'm going to be asking you to go to this site, and I want you to tell me whether you think the context, why this is important, what is the issue tackled, and how the issue tackled is actually written in that abstract introduction. Okay, so please read it, and then I'm going to ask you whether you think each of these particular points are included in that abstract. Here hopefully at NTU and Scribner University, you also have a printout of the abstract so that you can read it. If not, it'll be very difficult maybe to read from the slide. Okay, so if you could go ahead and do that. So when you have finished reading it, can you please go to this site on the internet with your smartphone or your tablet, www.menti.com, and put in that number, no space, it's 304132, and please tell me whether you think that introduction includes the context. Only the ones that you think are included will you vote for. You can vote for more than one of them if you think they are there. Okay, from what you can see from voted, all four issues seem to have been in one way or another touched upon, but the relative balance between them is a little bit unbalanced. So it spends a lot of time on this, the issue of why is important, but it doesn't allow enough time to work out, to give the readers an understanding of how they are going to tackle the issue. So from my perspective, when I was reading that, my view was exactly the same as yours, that it was an introduction that gave all 4 ones, but it was unbalanced and maybe too long. It needed to get to the shorten this issue part and concentrate a little bit more on the how it's going to be tackled in this research. Okay. So I went ahead and rewrote that introduction to try and reflect a little bit more about how that is. And so I said, while many abnormal types of eggs can be detected and eliminated prior to shipping, those infected with the bacteria Pseudomonas aeruginosa, PF, which can compromise the immune system of humans, cannot currently be detected non-destructively. So that's the problem. It cannot be detected non-destructively. Moreover, where the contents of the eggs are mixed with the bacteria, can spread and spoil the whole batch. So this was setting the context and why it is important. Then in the next paragraph, previous research has shown that PF contains a fluorescence component that when isolated has an excitation emission peak at 490 nanometers, while intact rotten eggs with PF have a peak at 400 to 550 nanometers. This research aims to identify the reasons for this shift in emissions in order to develop a non-destructive means of detecting rotten eggs with PF. So I have now identified what is the issue. When it's just by the components by themselves, it's 490, but when it's read in the egg, intact egg, it's now 530. Why? And finally, how are they going to do this research? This research aims to identify the reasons for this shift. So I tried to add a little bit more weight to how they are going to do it. And it's become a little bit shorter. Okay. So, Professor Kondo, do you have any extra comments that you'd like to talk about the introduction? Okay. Professor Toffel, do you have any other extra comments for the introduction?
I think it's a little bit longer. So it's compared to the balance, if we look at the total extended abstract, the introduction is too long compared to materials and methods. I think it would be better to cut it half and pick only the important things. Basically, some of them are given, but it can be concise. I think this is one of the part, is the longer in the introduction part. People may lose the interest if introduction is too long, and this may not go forward. Okay.
So from NTU, are there any comments about the introduction?
Yeah, the introduction is too much longer, so better to make it shorter. Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Ueda-kun, any comments from you?
Thank you for suggestion. My introduction was too long. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. So now I'd like to go on to the materials and methods section. Okay. Again, it talks about materials and section of going to the supermarket, doing this injection, but it's not really giving you a structure that you can understand the flow of the experiment. So this I tried to rewrite when I said, I gave it two headings. First one is sample preparation, and the second one is fluorescence emission measurements. I'm giving it a signpost about how to think about how they went about doing this experiment. So, X number of white eggs. So, in your introduction, or in your materials and methods, you just said white eggs. You didn't tell us, did you only buy 2 or 3 white eggs and do the experiment? Or did they buy 50 eggs and then they did some color measurements or some weight measurements to make sure that they only had the most homogeneous eggs? I want to understand whether the way which they did that research is one that I can trust. But at the moment, that sort of credibility is not coming across. So I'd like to have had something like that. X number of white eggs to be used in the experiments were purchased from a local supermarket. After eliminating for colour or for weight or whatever reasons, eggs to ensure greater homogeneity were then randomly divided into 2 groups, control and treatment groups. I'm telling the process of why I'm doing it, or hopefully I am. Why number of eggs in both groups? So I'm showing you again, I'm doing it in a statistically testable way. Treatment eggs were injected with 0.1 millimeter albumin infected by PF. The effectiveness of infection was confirmed. So you've said that it's been injected, but you don't know whether it's actually made the egg rotten or not. So your results may not be quite believable if you just injected it but nothing happens inside the egg. All the eggs were preserved at 4 degrees Celsius. Excitation emission matrix data using a spectrometer measured fluorescence measurements of intact eggs for both the control and treatment groups, as well as the yolk album, eggshell extracted from the broken eggs. Okay, so that's also now at the end, what you didn't have in your materials and method is how are they going to test, evaluate the success or not? How are they going to measure the success? I would have liked to have a sentence there telling me their methods of measuring or evaluating the validity of the tests. Okay. So, as I mentioned again, methods and materials, it's all about creating credibility, trust, and transparency. The authors are not saying, just believe me, I did a great job, but they're helping you to make your assessment of how well they did the job. That's what that materials and methods section is about. Okay, Professor Kondo, any comments?
Just a simple comment. October 23rd, November 12, maybe you'd better spell out October, just OCT and NOV, because some countries opposite, maybe 23 is okay, no months, but 11, 12 is sometimes confusable. That's it.
Okay. Professor Kafal?
The writing in materials methods need to a little bit revised. For example, as Professor Kondo mentioned, based by 1023, measured by 1112, it's not clear in many places. And the second line, third line, I think, I made a hole with pin and injected with syringe. I think probably it needs to be a little bit changed way to write. A hole was made with the pin and injected with the syringe. Probably this way would be better. Second continuous, like I measured another normal white shell eggs as control. So probably it needs to also, because in writing, it is not conventional to make I measured. All eggs are preserved at 4 degrees centigrade during experiment. Probably there is some mixed tense issue. It is better to have a uniform, like a tense, maybe past tense is better. So this is the materials, methods to get the detailed influence data. I got I got excitation emission matrix. I think this need to be a rephrase writing is needed. By using a spectrophlorometer, first eggs are measured as intact egg. Detection point was set at inside egg, 1 centimeter from egg shell. Probably compared to introduction, this part of the English writing needs to be improved as it is one. And then I think it's a little bit shorter, materials and methods. A little more explanation would be better. While reducing introduction, there'd be some space comes out, and probably it would be better to add more methods about like a more fluorescence property and things. I think, yeah.
Okay, thank you. From NDU?
Yeah, I think they are, as mentioned by earlier professor, I think the passive tenses needed to be used in writing. Instead of I made a hole, I measured another normal white shell X, and so on. So passive tense is recommended to use.
I'll just echo that because the result will based on the material you chosen. So probably in the materials, give some the reason why you make this, for example, 46x 48. Why the number is enough, so that you going to base on these numbers of experiments, then the result discussion to verify the method you propose. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll now, for the discussion, I'll hand the comments over to Professor Kondo. Would you like to comment on the discussion? Okay. Professor Toffer, would you like to comment on the discussion? Okay. Are there any comments from Scuba University? Oh, okay.
Rafael-san, do you have any comments?
On the results, right, Sensei? So probably I think these results are almost same as previous study. I think it is not mentioned what is previous study. It is better to give a reference, like say previous research from the same lab, what was done. So previous study, so it is better to give a reference here from this lab. So maybe a reference would be better for previous study. And then EM of intact rotten egg. I think this part is a little bit difficult to follow. So now if we come to discussion section, there is some possibility that the cause peak change. What is peak? So peak change means which peak? It is a wavelength peak or different peak, so it was not mentioned, like a discussion little bit general. When the excitation light comes into egg, there are absorption by shell, albumin, and yolk. Maybe some English needs to be rephrased. Corrections, shell, albumin, and yolk. Also, when emission light goes out from the albumin, there are same absorbance. What is same? I think these sort of words we try to avoid. Same absorbance. So, and probably it is better not to start with sentences so. So light doesn't reach uniformly. I think mixed tense happened here because it is the discussion with an experiment. So probably the light was not distributed uniformly, or light did not reach uniformly while doing the experiments. To confirm this hypothesis, we need to do transmittance rate of each component. Of each component, what was the component? It is not clear. So it is need to mention that if I make a new word, like each component, which are the each component? Is it about, so needs to confirm this sort of wordings while you use the discussion. Peak change, caused a peak change. What is peak? So peak of wavelengths, peak of fluorescence wavelengths, and some small write-ups. And probably the last one, to avoid the vague words, like sometimes it's not clear to follow up. We need to know transmittance rate of each component. Probably it is be better to explain what is each component. So that's all from me.
From NTU, are there any comments about results and discussion?
Yeah, well, I could just quite agree that the professor's comments. So there are quite a lot of variables to affect the results. So in the result and discussion, probably from the experimental result, your observation or your insights. So even the result hasn't reached the conclusion, but you may mention your opinion and try to explain what's happening for the results, and especially the peak shift. Yeah. And that leads to the further research in the future for yourself or others. Well, that's my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. So now I'd like the students to read the conclusion and go again to that same site to determine whether those particular components were adopted. Oops. So does the conclusion revisit the main purpose, review most important findings, interpret results, provide future implications? Okay, so it seems as though from your observations, you are saying that there's a relatively good balance between the most important parts and the revisit the main purpose maybe there, but maybe it needs to have a little bit more added detail there. So from my perspective, that first sentence says, EM of rotten eggs by PF revealed that the strongest peak was seen at 435 feet. Maybe it would be better would be saying our results of the 435 30 nanometer excitation emission was consistent with previous research. At the moment, you can't really tell whether it's their original research or it's somebody else's, and they're just saying we've got the same results. So our method of measuring it is believable because other people have also got those same results. Maybe just to increase that revisiting. But from your perspective, it would seem as though you think it has a relatively good balance. Professor Kondo, would you like to comment?
Yes, just the final line, final sentence, that should be passive way. Maybe experiment should be conducted in the future or something like that. That's all.
Okay. From Scuba University, did you have any comment?
Oh, thank you. I think this line is too long, like a peak shift, second line, second sentence, peak shift between intact egg and albumin. Albumin was caused by the absorptions of albumin itself, yolk or shell, because albumin's EM was almost same as intact, but yolk and shell showed no change. Probably it would be better to write in two sentences. So it's too long, so it lost sometimes it's not clear to focus in one reading. Probably this sentence need to break down and write into two. And another thing I noticed that this is written in the past tense. So probably the results also need to be written in a past tense as well. So the mixed tense came, and Professor Kondo mentioned maybe it would be better like if further experiments shall be conducted or should be conducted, and trust about each component. I think probably it is better to repeat each component, what it's wanted to mean each component more clearly, and which one are more sensitive. So I think probably it would be better to give a overall benefit from this research, how it could be benefited in future. Just one things like a future implications or something as our slide shows. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
And to you?
Yes, there's only 3 sentences in the conclusion section, especially the second sentence is too long. So I suggest to break into 2 sentences or 3 sentences to make your statement more clearly to the readers.
Only small comments on the reference. Reference number 3. The format is not consistent to the previous 2, and I try to use Google Scholar to try to find the paper, and it's not very easy. So probably have to check that. Yeah, put the necessary information. For example, there's no anyway. Yeah, have to check the reference number 3. Yeah, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's go on to the second. Oh, sorry.
Would you like
to comment?
Okay, thank you for your advices. I revised my abstract based on your suggestions. Yes, maybe many of my English writing way was not enough, so I revised. That's
Okay,
all.
thank you very much. Okay, good. Okay, so I'd just like to do a little exercise looking at the title as the main doorway into the research, and does it tell the story? So what I'd like you to do is again go to that site and tell me, oops, no. Oops. Okay, what words could be deleted from this title? What words are not necessary? Okay, we're running out of time, so, but most of you are putting on their property and based on. I would also question deletion. Deletion doesn't sound right in this context. Okay, and now what words, what new keywords weren't in the title that should be there? What keywords should have been in the title that weren't there? Okay, so no new keywords? No? Okay. Chicken egg. Okay, so yeah. EEM. Okay, yep. Okay, so we'll go on from that and go back to, oops. Let's see. So when I was looking at it, I chose some of the words that you chose about based on and properties, and I've changed the title to Fluorescence Detection of Rotten Eggs Infected with Pseudomonas florensis. So I thought that this infected should have been there because it's the way in which the egg has become rotten. And I've reduced property, I've got rid of based on there, and I've put fluorescence detection rather than deletion there. So hopefully this tells us not a stronger story about what they're trying to do. And it's probably not it's not a sentence grammatically. But you don't need to have a grammatical sentence in the title, because it's the introduction of how people can find that research. Okay, I'm running out of time. We've got a second one, but we don't have enough time to do that. So I'll hand back over to Professor Kondo. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Tamura, unfortunately, we have no time. Maybe privately that you may ask us. Well, you are very lucky that you can use you can use it for your own defense. Yeah, thank you very much. I think that would be all today's class. Today is the final day of our three universities joint class. Before closing, Professor Suming Chen, do you have any announcement about a new ISMAP current 2020?
Yes, I have a very brief PowerPoint to show you. So, during a few minutes, will be okay?
Yes, please do it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, can you see my PowerPoint? Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes, we can see your PowerPoint from Kyoto.
Okay, so Tsukuba is also okay, right? So welcome to the ISMET 2020. So it's going to be have the big issue for Taiwan, Japan, and Korea scholars in our field. And so I will give you a brief background of this ISMET. At the very beginning, there's a forum called East Asia Forum on Intelligence and Agriculture. Was launched by Professor Ikeda and Professor Yu in Korea and Professor Lu in Taiwan in 1992. And the first forum was held in Kyoto in 1992, and second forum was held in Suwon, Korea in the next year, 1993. And the other year you have, yes? Is it okay? And the third year, EF, the forum was held in Taipei, Taiwan in 1994. And this is the very initial gathering together for the forum. And then, so there's a trial in 1997 called ISAMA, not the ISMA, ISAMA. And this agreement based on the GSM, KSM, and CIM that was held in Taipei 1997. You see the picture there. Professor Sale from University of Kyoto, and also you can see my picture. I was much younger at the time, so so this was a trial for ISMET. So finally, because the ISMET ISAMA 1997 is so successful, so we society decide to have the regular symposium once every 2 years. And the symposium would be held in Taiwan, Japan, Korea in turn. And so by this agreement, so the first ISMET was held in Jiayi, Taiwan, 2002, and Kobe, Seoul, Taichung, Kyushu, Jeonju, Inan, Niigata, and Jeju in Korea. That's and it should be 2 years ago, 2018. And although the host country are Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, but the symposium is open to all the participants from all the world. Okay, and I give you a very brief background. This the first ISMET 2002 in Jiayi Professor Yamazaki from Japan give their talk that time, and then it seems very formal. But for example, in Kobe 2004, and we have very good trip. I mean, technical tour after a symposium, and have very good lunch at one of traditional Japanese barbecue house, and we enjoy that very much. And then 2008, you see Professor Kondo on the way here, Professor Kondo, and then just in Taichung, Taiwan. And then after the dinner, I mean the banquet, and we have the karaoke. You see few professors sing very happily there, and Koike Sensei, I think he was very happy singing the songs. And then some technical tour in Japan, and also there's entertainment in Korea in 2012. And this picture shows my group from my lab for 2014 and 2016 go back to Japan. And then last time in Jeju, and you'll see Professor Kondo there also. And I mean the three presidents of each society, and also the some I think there's a former president from SABE and so on. And then we have a good visit to the Citrus Research Institute in Jeju. And then finally, we have a very good time for a kind of very good view on a high mountain. And I think Ida Sensei is here, and his students in the laboratory. And I think that's the Umeda Sensei from Kyoto University too. And there's a Professor Ye from NTU, and this myself. And okay, this is too much for the background. How about estimate this year, 2020? Estimate 2020 will be held in Kaohsiung / Pingtung, Taiwan, during May 18 to 20 this year. And there's a website. And why Kaohsiung and Pingtung? The meeting will be in Kaohsiung, and the technical tour will be in Pingtung. And it was held by the National Pingtung University of Science and Technology. Okay, I think this video, I can show the video later on. And important dates for the abstract and full paper and early bird registration was listed on the website. So please visit the website. And there's some topic area for estimate 2020, and almost the same as we have in the previous conferences. I think a very short movie. I see there's some noises in the pictures. Okay, I think I will put the PowerPoint and the movie in the 9 group, so every people, our group can view more closely. So thank you very much. So welcome to ISMA 2020 in Taiwan, the coming May. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Good presentation. I know Pingtung is a very beautiful city, and we are expecting to meet you all, and some of you, maybe third grade students are getting in the laboratory this year, and after that, you may go to Pingtung together.
Yes,
Okay.
I can organize the gathering for we students together for our joint class. No problem.
Good, very good. So you may meet reunion, not reunion, maybe reunion actually. So that would be all for joint class, 3 universities. Is there anything from you, the Tsukuba, Tofairo-san, anything to say?
Maybe we can also invite our students to join in SMAD. So that would be a very good initiative, right? So we'll also circulate to our master students and lab students to join.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome.
We still have one more joint class with Tsukuba and Kyoto, right? One more time.
Yeah, one more time, right?
January 27. January 27.
Yeah, NTU is the last time now for joint class.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. See you. See you at Pingtung.
Okay, Pingtung. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.